Welcome to No Player Connected, the only podcast where we go into your favorite video games and then don't play them. I'm your host, Professor Jam, and today we are joined by alleged book reader, president of the Steve Harrington fan club, and the person who named this podcast, Clem.
I did name this podcast. I did. And it might be the best thing about it. Who knows? Oh, I didn't mean it like that. But I meant, I don't know.
Strong start.
It's a strong name for a strong podcast.
Yeah.
That's right. That's better. That was what I should have said.
We can edit that in post. I won't, though.
Okay.
Anyway, today we are here to discuss Bioshock Infinite. As a matter of fact, I finished it last week, so it's still fresh in my mind. Clem, it's still fresh in your mind, too, right?
Well, the Wikipedia pages. So, can I explain to them?
Yeah, you can talk to the little people on the computer.
Bioshock Infinite, for a very, very long time, was my favorite game. And now it may have only been used up by Hunt Showdown and Apex Legends. But it's very different. You don't compare apples and oranges. It's like, do you prefer Saving Private Ryan or The Lion King? They're different, right? But I love Bioshock Infinite so much that I can't replay it, because what if it's not how I remember it? Like, this life-changing, obsessive experience that I thought was so beautiful that I sobbed for, like, an entire evening, thought about it for weeks. So therefore, no, it's not fresh in my mind because I haven't played it for 10 years.
Damn. That's still a really cool way of phrasing it, because I've had that feeling for old games, like from the PlayStation 2 era, where I have them, I have the consoles, I have the means to play them, but there is that memory that I'm a little worried, like, am I going to ruin that if I play it? I'll just look at it. I'll just think fondly.
Yeah, and I have that with quite a few things, but most of them, admittedly, are from childhood, which makes most sense, right? Because you have nostalgia and also your brain was malformed. Wasn't yet formed. It was perfectly formed, but it wasn't complete. So that makes sense with, like, you know, the Labyrinth or the Dark Crystal. I mean, you know, any 80s fantasy. Is it good today? Who knows? But Bioshock, you know, I was like 22 or something, you know? I was fully formed. So it shouldn't be any different today. But I so obsessively loved it, and I think played it at a time when I was sad. I think I'd just gone through a breakup, and I was, like, alone and sad and living on my own in London for the first time. And I was like, you know what? Bioshock Infinite is my home now. Columbia is my home.
At least Comstock was there for you in your time of need.
Daddy Commie.
He'd hate being called that.
He
would absolutely despise that. He'd probably kill you. Well, shit, we're already dipping our toes into this. I was going to ask you, would you be willing to just give the broad strokes of Bioshock Infinite? What is it about? Why are we hearing church bells? Why am I in a flying courtyard as opposed to the bottom of the sea, like the other Bioshocks?
Oh, I don't even know where to start with explaining that, James. It's not something... Bioshock Infinite isn't a broad strokes explanation. But I guess the answer you're looking for is there's this guy called Comstock. Zachary Comstock, I think his name is.
Oh, you're on a first-name basis.
Daddy Commie, yeah. He wanted to create a quote-unquote utopia, in his eyes. A little bit racist by today's standards. It's 1912, things are different then. And so he has done it in the sky with the help of some quantum physicists who are making his little city float. And he is letting people from the down low, which could, you know, obviously... Well, I'm not going to get any spoilers yet about what happens at the end. But if you want to come up, you can, but you have to be, like, baptized to get in. And you also probably have to be, like, white.
Yeah.
Although there are black people around, so, like, maybe if you get in and you're black, you just, like, second-class citizen.
I think what happens is, and this is jumping a little bit ahead, I think they explain it that the industrial tycoon guy, he's basically getting, like, people from the surface as well, but they're obviously not being treated properly. He's making promises of, like, oh yeah, you'll have an awesome time up here, and then
that makes sense.
Yeah, oh, you're indebted to me now, haha. Yeah, I don't think everybody gets the angelic chorus and baptism moment that you do in the beginning of the game.
Should we talk about that and how that is the best intro to any video game ever?
It fucks so hard. That opening blew me away, and I hated it at the same time. But I want you to tell me what you liked about it.
Well, I mean, it means something different after you've played it as well, obviously, because of the song that they're singing. But I think that... So after I played it, I used to... Once I completed the game for the first time, I say I haven't played it again, and I haven't played it again since that time, but during that, couple of week period after playing it for the first time, I played it over again a couple of times, but more importantly, would play it up until the bad stuff started to happen. I would just live the experience of coming to Colombia for the first time, meeting Elizabeth, dancing with Elizabeth, and just chilling out in this gorgeous place. So for anyone, I guess I'll explain what happens at the start for anyone who hasn't played Bioshock Infinite. You start on a boat with some strangers. They take you to a lighthouse. You go up to the top of the lighthouse. The lighthouse transforms into, a rocket ship and sends you up to Colombia. And once you arrive in Colombia, you start in this big chapel, and there's an incredible chorus of choir singers singing "Will the Circle Be Unbroken?" I don't know if that's the name of the song. And you just walk through all of these candles with this really melodic, beautiful, angelic singing, and there's all these big stained glass windows. And it's a really shallow amount of water that's reflecting all of the candles. And you just walk through it, and it is absolutely, I'm not religious, but it is a religious experience. Well, it's meant to be, but also just for me, it's just it gives you frisson, right? It's just, oh my god, I'm overwhelmed with just feeling beauty. It's just beautiful, it's gorgeous. And then later on, obviously, it gets ruined by the ethics.
Yeah, when you said when things start to get shit, you can argue it's technically shit from the get-go, but yeah, I agree with you that it's a very religious experience. I mean, it's literally a giant baptismal scene there. And the reason why I said I hated it is because there's something in my lizard brain that's wow, this is beautiful and this is good. And I know, oh, this is a awful theocratic hell state, but damn, does it look amazing. And it also does a great job of mirroring what happens at the beginning of Bioshock, where you descend into the city and you see Andrew Ryan's no gods, no kings, only men thing. This one has the whole oh, this is a new Eden and all this shit. And so I think it's a great parallel. It freaked me out a little bit too, because I used to go to church, and I was baptized as an adult, and so, or maybe it was late high school, but regardless, it gave me serious deja vu, and I was whoa, yeah, I remember this, getting dunked underwater. Yeah, very, very powerful, emotional opening.
But the Bioshock series in general is it shows you the good thing, not the morally good thing, but something that pleases you, hey, have some money, right, for example. And then it's oh, but we do have to stab your dog in the face to give you this £1 million. What's your choice, right? And it's just all about questioning perspective, morals, ethics, etc. And I think that beginning, going through that, I was well, I am white, so I could just accept this. I would be fine here, and it's gorgeous and incredible, and I like it, and it's making me feel safe and protected, and maybe I want to join a commune after playing Bioshock Infinite so I can live out my days in this way. Obviously that all gets torn down. But yeah, it's, and that, they do such an incredible job of maintaining that feeling of absolute paradise for, the first 30 minutes of the game, right? Not only are you start in a chapel, but you walk around a 1950s Americana fair. You get given a love potion. There's a barbershop quartet floating nearby. Everything is perfect. It's being in the Matrix, but it's completely crafted to just give you endorphins and happiness and make you feel this is a utopia.
I feel kind of dumb because right in, spoiler alerts, even though we kind of talked about it already, this is a racially segregated society. There's horrible mistreatment of anybody that isn't white, and also Irish people. And I realized about a minute before they kind of shoved that in your face, I was wait a second, everybody here is white. Did they have limitations on, the models or something? No, this isn't that old of a game. They wouldn't overlook that. And then, yeah, you get hit in the face with, a crowd that's wanting to I think, do they want to kill an interracial couple, or are they just throwing stuff at them like tomatoes? It's a fucked up scene, but it does a good job of shattering the illusion that, like, oh, this is paradise and there are no problems here.
And yeah, and that's also, that moment that you just described is the first time that you have to actively partake in being racist or being shunned from that society. Because the act of, like, picking up the object to throw it, I mean, you can, again, spoiler alert, you can throw it at the interracial couple, or you can throw it at the guy that's hosting this, like, fair event where you get to, like, throw tomatoes at an interracial couple, right? And in doing so, that reveals the mark on your hand, which shows that you're the false prophet. But that is the first time that, like, everything's broken down. It's like, you are now forced to participate, make a decision. Like, and even though I know it doesn't matter, I'll do this in any video game, I'm always the good guy. In Fable, I have to be, like, completely good. I don't care about the bad ending. I don't care about, like, what happens if I'm, like, making nefarious decisions. No, I am good, and I'm going to be the best, and everyone's going to love me. So, like, I'm not going to throw a tomato at the interracial couple. That would make me feel like no one can see me sitting in my bedroom playing Bioshock Infinite. And I know it doesn't matter, but I'm not doing it. I can't do it. It's icky.
Yeah. I mean, when we role play in games, sometimes it's not to, oh, I'm going to be the most fucked up guy I can think of. Sometimes it's like, I'm going to be brave and do something good that I wouldn't have an opportunity to do in real life. I don't know. I agree. I did not throw the tomato at them. And then, yeah, immediately you just get outed as this weird, yeah, like you said, false prophet, which that's getting into a whole other can of worms. Yeah.
I'd like to also mention, like, just to really drive home the fact that this is a utopian experience, walking around Colombia before it starts to unveil itself as the racist shithole that it is, there are, like, hummingbirds. There are hummingbirds everywhere. They've gone, okay, what's the most iconic, most peaceful, most, like, if you see it in the wild, you're like, I've been blessed today. Like, it's a sign from God. There was a hummingbird in my garden. Like, it's a moment. Like, make a TikTok about it. It'll get, like, 1 million views. There's hummingbirds all over Colombia. You would be so popular on TikTok if you lived in Colombia.
I mean, I know we said it's a floating city, but, like, looking around New Eden Square, and that's where we are, by the way. I wasn't very specific. Maybe you can tell from the church bells. It's not just, like, Rapture, where it's, like, one decently sized city. If you look out, you just see, like, multiple huge, what could be on their own cities, I feel. It's just this never-ending, like, assault on your senses that you're living in a heaven on Earth. Very utopian setting that's covering up a lot of ugly shit underneath. And,
like, all of the different segments of these cities are floating on clouds, like, obviously heaven imagery. Also, it's all pastel colors, and the lighting is always, like, golden hour lighting. It's always, like, Instagram filter worthy shots everywhere you look. It's just, everything is perfect.
She loves social media.
Like, if you could smell Colombia, it would be candy floss, right? It would be like candy floss and, like, fresh grass being cut. Like, everything is crafted to be absolute dream world in those like first opening moments.
You could talk about the setting and how beautiful it is for days, I feel, and how horrifying it gets later on, though. But I think we'll touch on that later. There were some parts that genuinely scared me, later sections.
Okay, I bet that's something that I don't remember. I'm a Columbia slut. That's what I am. And so, I mean, I need to also preface this. I mean, I'm saying preface, we're probably like 10 minutes into the podcast at this point. I'm a huge, like, Americana fan. Early days Coney Island or Chicago World's Fair, those things are my biggest passion in life. Like, reading books about that, looking at pictures of it, like, watching documentaries, like, it makes me feel some type of way. To the point where when I was like, this is a lifelong thing, but when I was like 12, 13, I genuinely believed that I had been, like, a 1950s American in a past life. Because I was just so obsessed with it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, because, like, for me, you know, this may shock some of you, I live in America. It's not just from video games and movies. And so I've already like been inundated with American imagery and propaganda and stuff, and I wanted to know what that was like for someone not living in our silly little country here to get bombarded with like an ultra patriotic propaganda version of our already very nationalist country.
Well, it was everything I'd ever wanted. Like, this is what I was looking for. Like, if anything, like, the fact that it was floating, for me, was a detriment, because that's not what it was really like. Okay, back in the day, back in the golden age of America. So that was like, a mark off. But everything else, you have all, like, do you call it ticker tape? That all, like, the floating, like, confetti from parades.
Yeah.
Like, all of that on the floor is, like, red, white, and blue. Like, it's even the fact that there's a fair going, like, state fairs. Oh my god. I would, like, rather go to a state fair than, like, any Barbados holiday. It's just, it drives me. So, like, it was like this was perfectly crafted to just scintillate every fucking thing that I give a shit about in my brain. Apart from the racism.
Also, it's a bad place. These people are evil.
I'm just talking purely about aesthetic. Go on.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say that the part of the setting, too, is that they don't necessarily hide the ugly parts, too. Like, even in this square, like, oh, you're like, oh, this is so beautiful. And then there's this ominous poster that says, the tower protects the lamb from the false shepherd. And you're like, what the fuck is that all about? That's a little weird.
Well, that's their little propaganda, isn't it?
Yeah, and then they sprinkle that out throughout. So, I don't know. Very, very, I think, floating city aside, I think they portray it pretty realistically how normalized this stuff was.
Yeah, the iconography of, like, oh, the devil and to be fearful of strangers is everywhere also, but it, like, fits in with what's going on. Like, it would be very easy to be brainwashed here into 100% believing that. Because if your life is walking around, going to a fair, hopping around to these little shops and stuff, getting a free love potion, and then they're like, oh, but watch out, there's a false shepherd, don't stray from this, protect Elizabeth in Monument Island in the Big Angel, you can be like, yeah, right, mate. All right, Comstock, that's fine. I'm going along with it because you've got the best life. What? Don't rock the boat, baby.
There's hummingbirds. There's hummingbirds. I guess I wanted to ask you, because we've been gushing over how beautiful the setting is for this game, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the characters, the main gang.
Yeah.
I just wanted your thoughts on, I don't know, I guess the core you would say is your character, Booker DeWitt, Elizabeth, and then, Daddy Commie. Do you got any favorites in there? Any that you take issue with? Or are you like, A+, no notes?
I mean, no, A+, no notes. I mean, like, I think to talk about the characters again is to be like a big spoiler for the whole thing. I mean, maybe it's like a bit ham-fisted, right? Like maybe, oh, Comstock is the big evil, and then like Daisy is, oh, she's meant to be good, but then like she gets a taste of power and then she's bad. But then if you play Burial at Sea, they kind of like twist that back on itself again.
I do need to say this, because this might influence how people view like our takes on things, and also I want to avoid spoilers. I have not played Burial at Sea. And so,
yeah,
I need to still do that. I'm a fake fan.
I don't really like the Burial at Sea Daisy, but I do like that it's like another twist. I love a twist. It doesn't matter how shit it is. I just like throw them at me. But yeah, I think like, you know, like I was saying, ham-fisted character, like Comstock, bad guy. Daisy's supposed to be good, but oh, then they get like a taste of power, so then they're kind of corrupt anyway, and then it turns out they're not that great. Booker is in like this like gray area. Because he will just, like, kill for whatever reason. He doesn't really give a shit. He's just, like, there to get paid at first. And then obviously, like, selling his... Well, he didn't sell his baby, actually. I can't remember why he gave Elizabeth away as a child.
I think he gives up his baby initially because he's just got debts. So that is, like, pretty demonstrably bad.
That's what I thought.
I would say, is baby selling bad?
Well, no, yes. Baby selling bad, but...
I almost got you there. Well, you brought up Daisy, and so I guess I'm gonna bring up something specific I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
And that's the Vox Populi in this game and for those of you that don't know, they're a resistance group that's fighting against the racial inequality, the economic inequality in Colombia. You find out that there's a massive, underclass of people that aren't living in paradise. There's still, slums and stuff in this giant floating metropolis. And they pull kind of a switcheroo on you, abruptly, in my opinion, where the Vox Populi, they're literally fighting against this very violent system, and the game kind of says, oh, the Vox are violent too. I guess they're just as bad as Comstock. And that was one of my biggest gripes with the game. I wanted your thoughts on it, though.
Yeah, so I said about, the characters being sort of just tropes, right? It's not very nuanced or subtle, a lot of the stuff in Bioshock Infinite, apart from the overarching cyclical multiverse part of it, which I guess isn't subtle, but it's complex enough to make Bioshock Infinite, I think, a standout game, and along with the visuals. So I think the Vox Populi, which means voice of the people in Latin. Yeah, that's where they got that name from.
How many years of Latin did you take?
3.
Wait, for real?
Yeah.
Oh, damn, that was meant as a throwaway joke.
Oh,
Holy
sorry.
shit.
I ruined. Do you want me
rules.
to?
Yeah, you're too educated. I'm gonna need you to stop being so smart.
Well, I am British. Yeah, so I think it's... it is kind of, ham-fisted, and it's just sort of oh, now they're bad guys, and they take it too far. So, for anyone listening, by taking it too far, they just go around, they start killing everybody. It becomes just a state of terror, with the Vox Populi running wild, which I guess isn't unrealistic. We've seen glimmers of that elsewhere in real life, but the way that it happens so instantaneously is a little bit, I guess, cheap. It's just to forward the story into the next, level, where we start looking at how this is happening in all of the multiverse worlds that they visit. They're at different stages of this rebellion. There's a point where Booker has to go and find an arms dealer or something in order to rescue Elizabeth, or I can't remember what he's looking for, but it's something to...
They have the airship that he needs, and so you meet these freedom fighters, and they're like, we need weapons for our revolution. Can you go talk to the arms dealer? And then hilarity ensues.
Yeah, in order for Daisy to help him, she's like, all right, go and get us this shit, I think, right?
Yes.
And then I'll help you. And then so Elizabeth, again, doing a terrible job of explaining Bioshock Infinite. I'm working with the assumption people already have played it and love it, and that's why they're listening to this. But Elizabeth can open portals to other dimensions. They're called rifts, and she's being shut in a tower by Comstock, her father.
Also spoiler.
Well, no, he is her father.
No, that's pretty clear. They do say that.
Yeah, so Comstock... Wait, isn't Comstock her father, even if he's... before we find out who he is?
Yes.
Okay.
In this world, there's a lot of, dimensional travel. And so one of the quirks of that is that the leader, Comstock, is infertile, and he has a child kidnapped from an alternate dimension to be his daughter, his adoptive daughter. However, he's stealing from an alternate version of himself, and so biologically his daughter is still his daughter.
Correct.
So there you go. A little wacky, a little silly.
And we think that there's no explanation for her powers, but one explanation could be that because she got taken from another dimension, she is therefore given the ability to travel through dimensions.
They explain that it's because her pinky got left behind in one other dimension, so she's existing in 2 at the same time.
And also, Comstock is keeping Elizabeth, so she has the power to travel through dimensions. He has created these machines to keep her power at a minimum so that she can't... I don't know why he wants to... He's just keeping her trapped. He's keeping her away from Booker, I guess, because he knows that Booker's going to come for her. Or he has done... How does he know that Booker... We shouldn't don't put this in the podcast.
I don't even remember how we... Oh, we were talking about the Vox, though. We were talking about the Vox.
Yeah. So I think, Vox... it's not a very elegant way of doing it, but it has some fucking cool visuals at the end. It has a lot of impact. It's really interesting that in every single universe, the same thing is happening. Like, that always triggers the same result, which is, obviously a commentary on how we are as people. How, like, you can be the good guys, but you can get corrupted, like, by power or hate or whatever. And back to your question about how I feel about the characters. Everyone, I think, unless I have really, really poorly considered this because it's been 10 years, everybody is either bad or morally grey, and it's a very depressing story apart from Elizabeth, who ultimately does the most selfless thing possible and is like this only beacon of hope in this entire world. And what makes it even sadder is the fact that she, respectively, like, kills herself to prohibit this cycle of terror and racism, even though she was the only spark of hope. So it's like she took the hope away, but then she also took a lot of the bad stuff away.
I don't even know if it's fair to say she ultimately... Well, those versions of her are dead. Again, a bunch of wacky time stuff and dimensional stuff happens in this game. And she, spoiler alert, kills Booker, who is her biological dad. And she kills him, like, across a bunch of different universes. But apparently at the end, you still have Booker waking up at his desk. And his daughter might still be home. And so I think it may have just been a gigantic reset. But I guess you're right. Functionally, Elizabeth kills herself. And to prevent all of, like you said, all of this insane shit from happening.
So, yeah, and because when she kills Booker, it's at the point of his first baptism, which is after... Was it Wounded Knee he was at?
Yes. So he was at Wounded Knee, and then, like, I think 2 years later... he gets baptized.
Because he has so much PTSD from his actions at Wounded Knee and what he saw there. He gets baptized, or he doesn't. And that's where that fragmented decision, creates all of the multiverse that Elizabeth is involved in. And it's that moment that he becomes either Comstock or he goes back to live his normal, like, bitter, shitty detective life. But in every world where he's Comstock, the same thing happens with the Vox and Comstock and Elizabeth. But when Elizabeth kills Booker, she kills, like, the Comstock version of him, I guess, if there's still a version of him living normally. But Anna isn't Elizabeth, and Anna doesn't have the powers, so if she remains Anna, and it doesn't become Elizabeth, which is the name given to her by Comstock after he kidnaps her, then I don't know if she would be the same person. That's a nature-nurture debate. Anyway.
God, there's a lot in there.
Yeah, it's difficult.
There's a lot. It is difficult to explain. Yeah. I did want to ask you, and this is a question that I did not have previewed for you. This is something that I thought of at 3 a.m. last night. But do you sometimes think about, like, those key moments in your life where, like, you could have gone in a bunch of different directions? Because this game really does emphasize this. Like, at that key juncture, either Booker becomes a theocratic dictator or an alcoholic private investigator. And so have you ever thought about moments in your life where, like, things could have wildly went different? Because I have, like, little different versions of myself where I'm like, I wonder, what would have happened if I had been more religious, or I had, had these political beliefs? What would my life be like?
Yeah, I mean, I do all the time, but not so much. I think I use it as a coping mechanism. Whenever anything bad happens, I think there's a version out there where that hasn't happened. Like, there is somewhere I am, like, living, I don't know, the best life. I don't mean that, like, I'm, like, a millionaire with an incredible career or no career at all, just, like, one loads of... Like, I don't mean that. I just mean, like, nothing... Every time something bad happens which left a negative impact on my life, there's a Clem out there where that didn't happen to her, and I might be the one that has to, like, suffer this, but that's okay, because that's just me doing it. There's another one that has the good life, so as long as she's out there, then that's okay.
That's interesting, because that's kind of like, that's the I don't know if it's quite the opposite of how I view mine, where I'm more thinking, how did other versions of me react to this thing that we all encountered or have a high probability of encountering? Like, is there an incel version of me out there that just did not handle a breakup well?
That is interesting.
That sort of thing.
Because I, much like Bioshock Infinite, am the same to me in every universe. But
you float in the sky?
But I have, like, different things happen to me, but I am functionally the same. Whereas in your multiverse, you're different because of the things that have happened to you.
Yeah, I guess you're the city, and then I guess I'm more like Booker, where there's the split of, do I become alcoholic or do I become a theocratic dictator?
I'm more like the lighthouse, I think. That's the motto, isn't it, of Bioshock Infinite?
Yeah, at the end you see, like, there are infinite versions of what's going on, hence the name. And you see an infinite number of Bookers and Elizabeths walking through a bajillion different lighthouses after they briefly visit Rapture.
And she says to him, there's always a city, always a man, always a lighthouse. That's the only constant. And they talk about constants and variables, but the constant is city, man, lighthouse in every one. And there's an implication there that Rapture is also one of these multiverses.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're saying that Booker, like, a Comstock is like an Andrew Ryan figure.
One of the things I took issue with the ending is that I would have liked it if we saw lighthouses, but they were all at least slightly different. Because the plot of this, like you said, implies that Columbia always happens. Like, yeah. We're always going to have a Columbia. But when they link Rapture in there, I would think that, Rapture was in one universe, Columbia's in another. Maybe we get a different lighthouse in a different country in another one. And so I feel like the two philosophies or messages kind of clash there, if that makes any sense.
It was something that I found difficult to negotiate in terms of just, like, my comprehension of how the multiverse worked within the lore of this game. So I was like, yeah, I was completely on the same thing. I was like, okay, it's always Columbia. But then if you introduce Rapture, the Comstock figure is gone. It's still the same type of story. It's like this evil guy manipulating people, etc. But is it Booker? Are we trying to say that Booker is the bad guy in Rapture too?
I mean, he's not, though, right? I mean, yeah. I haven't played Bioshock 2, so I don't, and I haven't played the DLC, but...
I mean, is there anything to say that... I mean, we wouldn't ever know that Comstock was Booker, either. So could Booker be Andrew Ryan? Because, like, the protagonist in Bioshock is, like, Jack, right? Is his name Jack?
Yeah, well, we know, where Andrew Ryan came from. Like, we have his whole backstory and stuff, so he can't be... But here's my headcanon. We retcon that ending. Our world's version of the tower was the Tower of Babel. There's my hot take. We get rid of all the lighthouses are the same. We give each universe its own fun, unique lighthouse with vague similarities. Ooh, or the I think Alexandria had a lighthouse too. So pick one of them bad boys.
But again, like, what does Rapture take place in the 50s? I don't know when it takes place.
Yes, I want to say Bioshock takes place in, like, the 50s or 60s.
And that's something else I don't understand if it's meant to be. Surely, like, despite it being a multiverse, it's still at the same point in time. I don't know how it works. I don't know what the lore is, but there's an inference that Rapture is also one of these.
Yeah.
It's within the same multiverse, like, going on.
Yeah, because I think they don't even show the lighthouse from the beginning of this game. They show the lighthouse from the beginning of Bioshock, when you have the infinite lighthouse dealio, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so it's a conflicted ending, I think.
Is it just fan service at that point? Like, here's advertising, guys. Wow. Like, because I just played Bioshock, and to be honest, I was fan-served. I was like, oh my god, I'm in Rapture, what the fuck, dude? This is the best thing I've ever beep.
I knew it was coming, and I was still like, "Oh my god! Like I'm back!" And
you knew?
I was excited. Yeah, I think I mentioned this in the Bioshock episode too, but I watched YouTube clips, and so I did that with this one too, because I wasn't following the Bioshock series closely, but I heard there was a lot of buzz, and I heard the ending was crazy, and so I watched it, but that emotional impact was still there. I was still giddy when you go to Rapture, because it's just this feeling of like, this isn't right. We've been in the clouds all game, and now I'm deep underwater in this city that's falling apart.
Yeah, and like to have something as beautiful and pure as Elizabeth in like this disgusting, depraved like Rapture world is like, it's really jarring too. Because she's like this pure entity, and Rapture was always made me feel dirty when I was playing the original Bioshock.
Yeah, it's interesting that you phrased that about Elizabeth, because when I was playing, I was almost weirded out by Elizabeth because, and I'm sorry if Elizabeth's listening to this, but they really do like, and it makes sense because she is your daughter. But I was like, wow, this is just like a kid following you around. I don't know, it was very weird. It makes you feel like you are a parent taking care of your child, but I don't like that feeling when I'm playing a video game. Like, I don't know how to phrase it. I was like, oh, there's this girl with like exaggerated features, and I'm very aware that the game is using her appearance to make me feel protective, and I didn't like that.
You felt protective?
Like that. No, I didn't feel protective, but I knew that's what the game was trying to do. Maybe I should have phrased that better. I was like, oh, like you have huge eyes, and you're always like all prim and proper and innocent. Stop manipulating me. Get out of my head.
True, but I mean, it works though. So in terms of like, for one, I disagree slightly. Like, yeah, I don't want anything bad to ever happen to Elizabeth. She's like the love of my life, but she is so fierce and independent. Like, she's the girl that gets you your ammo. Booker Catch, dude. Like, that's infamous, right? Everybody loves Booker Catch, and like she keeps you going. She saves your ass. She babysits you realistically, and then she has to kill. She killed Daisy in the end.
Yeah, she does.
That's her transformative moment. Like, she's got a fucking backbone, but also she's an adult woman, almost. Is she like 18, 20? I don't know how old she is.
I think she's 17 or 16.
Oh. But either way, she's been kept in like a room her whole life, so she's never like mentally had anything but like hope and dreams. Like, she hasn't been like tainted by the outside world, yet she is still mature, like physically. I don't know, like, I think like most players, I hardcore shipped Booker and Elizabeth for the entire game, only to feel very disgusted about my decisions at the end.
Well, see, that was another thing, is that I was playing this, and I thought that, like, there's people who were eyeing up Elizabeth, and I was like, wait, she's like a child, and also, I think I'm her dad, so that's pretty fucked up. And so that was part of it, where I was like, I don't really like the like gamer messaging here, because there's obviously the actual in-game lore, but the character design, they're trying very hard for you to like keep your eyes on her and view her as something to be protected, and she does give you a bunch of ammo and cool stuff, which I felt like the game was babying me, but then I was like, well, if I don't like it, I could have just cranked up the difficulty, so whatever.
Yeah, there's a secret 1999 difficulty too. That I think if you put in the Konami code, you can get like super hard difficulty if you don't.
Elizabeth shoots you if you're at full health. Booker pops, yeah. But yeah, I did feel conflicted on Elizabeth narratively, because you're right, she does do a bunch of things independently, but then there are a few moments where she's waiting for Booker to save her. But she's a girl, she's a princess in the castle, okay? What do you want her to do? Like, that's the whole impetus of the story. I wanted to have to kill Elizabeth at the end. She's the final boss. No, that's because that's also cliche. Oh, the person I like is now fighting me.
She supports you the whole game. She carries your ass through the whole game. She has a beautiful singing voice. She entertains you. She kills Daisy. Then she kills you and herself to save the world. And you think that you protected Elizabeth? All you did was get her out of that fucking castle. Like, that's it. Then she did the rest.
I mean, okay, here's what I'll say. The one thing that poked a hole in that was when she gets captured and you don't save her, at Comstock House, you see, like, a fast-forward, like, old version of her that just never got out.
Oh, I don't remember that. In my revisionist memory.
It never happened. Yeah, she gets captured and never escapes because Booker didn't come get her. And so she's this bitter... She's basically Comstock 2.0. Like, she grows up to be another Comstock. She does say that, like, the patients are running the asylum now, which indicates that basically she's lost control of Columbia, and you see that they're bombing New York City in 1984.
Yeah.
And so on one hand, you're right, like, she does all this cool independent shit, but then there's one scene where, Booker wasn't there to save her, she totally caves and becomes the next Comstock, even though she's got these cool powers and could possibly muscle her way out.
Well, her powers are restricted, and that's why they have to destroy all those things, though.
That is true.
Her down. I think, like, they help each other. It's 50-50.
Yeah.
Well, but she makes the ultimate sacrifice, something that Booker, I think, would always be too selfish to do, because he hasn't done that.
Yeah. You've tempered my view on Elizabeth. I now support her. Yeah.
That's the only reason I came on the podcast, was for Elizabeth propaganda. Sadly, like, I saw a tweet not long after you...
That is pretty sad.
Yeah.
Sorry you were on that site.
I wasn't. It was on Reddit, and they'd taken it, and I was forced to look at... I was on my cool site for cool guys. Well, actually, somebody was saying how Bioshock Infinite is the only game we can all collectively say we were tricked by and no longer love the way that we loved when it came out 10 years ago. And I think this is just, like, some bullshit like, whatever. People are jumping... Like, it got a lot of likes, right? And it was like, yeah, I know, it's not as good as I thought it was. But I think, like, that's a little bit people going, oh, I don't remember playing it. Maybe it's not as good as I remember. I've played a million other games which are fucking awesome since then. I'm not contextualizing it in, like, the time that it was made in 2013, right? I'm not contextualizing it against a time, like, before. So I think Bioshock Infinite came out when there was a lot of, like, time manipulation, multiverse stories in the media, like, in film, in books, like, whatever. Like, it was super popular maybe at the time, or it was, like, on the cusp of that. And I think that now people are looking back, and they're just poking holes in it from a 2023 perspective. And then they're not doing that to the original Bioshock, because I guess it's a more timeless story. But I just want to say that I'm not on that bandwagon. I still think Bioshock Infinite is the best Bioshock, and yeah, it is completely biased of me, because it plays to everything that I love, but
she's going all out.
Like, Bioshock is just fucking critically, like, good. Yeah, well done.
Stick to the script. Stick to the script.
Bioshock Infinite has hummingbirds. So, better. I just wanted to acknowledge that. Like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm just acknowledging it for anyone listening. Yeah, I've seen it, and they're wrong.
Okay. I don't even remember how we got there. But, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't as upset about the ending. I was more upset about the Vox thing, if I'm being completely honest. Any setting that takes, like, a group of people struggling against oppression and then looks at the camera and goes, violence on both sides. I guess we're all evil after all. Mankind is the real disease. I'm always like, that fucking sucks. Like, I don't enjoy that at all. But,
no.
like you said, a lot of it is just ham-fisted storytelling.
And that's, I'm here for the... Yeah. I was using 2013 as an example to talk about everyone being obsessed with the multiverse, right? And that was when it was huge in media. I don't know when, like, Inception came out, but, like, all of that stuff was going on back then, and people were like, wow. And now it's not going to be as impressive to play a video game where at the end it reveals, like, you're in a multiverse and you killed your father. And could you really have killed your father? If you kill your father, how'd you kill your father? You know, like, whatever. Grandfather paradox.
Killed your dad. How'd you kill your?
But I still love the multiverse. I don't give a shit. Like, I fucking love that. Like, and I love anything that makes me have to go back and have my little brain stretched for a moment and go, hold on, what just happened? Did I miss it? Let me consider all of the steps. And for it to tie together neatly, apart from that little rapture weird thing, it's so impressive to me. Like, that will always be my favorite type of, like, movie, book, whatever. Like, time crimes, anything that plays with going back in time, changing stuff, Primer, Bioshock Infinite, whatever, I eat that shit up. Which is why I prefer Infinite to Bioshock. Even though Bioshock might be a better game, like, there's a slightly more nuanced morality shit going down, right, in Bioshock, because you actually have different endings based on how... But again, it's like, oh, you were bad, I don't like you. Oh, you were good, I like you. Like, that's it, right?
Yeah, that's not much of a huge moral choice. I did want to make a different comparison, since I feel like we've talked about the plot and the theme quite a bit.
But not coherently.
Yeah, regrettably. Just gameplay-wise, and maybe this will get some hate, I prefer Bioshock Infinite.
Oh.
I think the controls were snappier. I don't know how I feel about... I was never a big plasmid person anyway. Like, I would pick my two that I like and then go with it. And that's what I did in this game, too.
Same.
And so, I like that I didn't have to use my camera. I felt like the aiming was easier in this game and more fun. The enemies had armor, but, like, they didn't just arbitrarily have more health because... fuck you, this is a spider splicer, and they just have more health than other people. No, like, people have armor, people have weak points, you can shoot the armor off. I enjoyed the gameplay more in this one than the original Bioshock, but I wanted your thoughts on it. Sorry, I kind of already gave my opinion on it. I like to give you the first go.
I like that, because I think actually one of the critiques that people have in their, I don't like it as much as we did in 2013 take, is that the gameplay is, like, very rudimentary. Like, there's not much going on there, which for me was always irrelevant. I could not give a fuck what the gameplay mechanics are. I'm here for the story, 100% the story. Okay, so, like, I didn't really care about shooting shit, what I was shooting, plasmids. Like, fuck plasmids. They don't even need to be there. Like, that's inconsequential. Just, I'm in a nice world and I'm saving my beautiful, beautiful, heroic daughter, right? But I thought they didn't interrupt my enjoyment, right? I think it's such an easy game, and then again, I did play it on medium, I didn't play it on hard, so, like, whatever, that's my fault. But I wasn't there for a fucking Elden Ring experience. I'm not playing Bioshock Infinite to, like, test my, I don't know, dodge and roll, right? I'm playing Bioshock Infinite to play a narrative game, and therefore I'm not that bothered about how difficult the enemies are to kill. But I think, like, the plasmas look beautiful. I think it's a cool thing that they've got going on. It's unique. Is it particularly inspiring? No. Is it clunky to control? I didn't think so, but I think some people find it clunky.
Really? I thought the originals were more clunky. Again, maybe that's just me, but I like the gun controls in this way better. I used the carbine for most of this, though, so maybe that paints my perception of it. I just enjoyed shooting people from far away, which is something you can't really do a ton of in Bioshock due to the setting, since you're in a claustrophobic area. Another issue I will say in the original Bioshock's favor is the plasmid variety that they had in the original. I think beats this one, or at least what you can do, because every little... I forget what they call them in this, but basically, the vigors, is that what they're called? They always have the, like, here's the primary effect, and then hold to create a trap. And there are, like, two that don't do that. And then all of them make some sort of goofy trap on the ground. And I got so sick and tired of hearing that.
Okay.
And so I will give that point in Bioshock's favor, but I did not like how Bioshock would just, here's a turret. Here's a turret with rockets. Good luck. And now there's like 3 of them in a room, and look out for this camera. Eventually, it would just get to the point where I would just have to cheese every enemy so that I don't run out of ammo. Fighting turrets.
Oh, wow.
Killing splicers that respawn. So I'm probably going to have bandit video games. Maybe. Maybe, but I felt like this game, you kill the dudes that are challenging, they still throw giant robots and turrets at you, but they don't, like, ambush you with them too much. I feel like the original Bioshock does a lot of neener, there was a turret around this corner that you didn't know about.
I don't even remember fighting anything in the original Bioshock. Like, I genuinely played these games just for the story, and if you'd asked me if there was fighting in the first Bioshock, I would probably said no. But I know that I have plasmids, and I know that I have some sort of shield and health, but I don't remember maybe like stabbing like a splicer or two, like maybe that was an issue. But that's more like walking around a scary environment and just getting rid of a few of the citizens. Whereas I remember Bioshock Infinite is like fighting like the police, fighting like I don't know who it is that's the mechanical America. Is it Abraham Lincoln? Like who's the
the Patriots? So the ones loyal to Columbia are George Washington, and the Vox ones are Abraham Lincoln, which absolutely crazy that Abe Lincoln is demonized in Columbia. And there's, like, a cult of people that view John Wilkes Booth as a hero. I thought that was, like, a really cool, but also fucked up thematic touch for this game.
It is. It's really, like, I like how they have actual American history in it, for a start. But the fact that they hate Abe Lincoln for, like, the thing that he's revered for in real life, it's cool. I like it. I liked seeing all the actual founding fathers coming out of, like, the thing at the beginning in the pond.
Yeah. And later on when you go to Comstock House, I think I sent you a screenshot because I was like, holy shit. You basically see a giant floating island that is supported by Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and George Washington's floating heads underneath it. And it just looks so fucking cool.
It is cool. I love Bioshock Infinite, James. I think it's the best game.
Damn it, we're back on the themes. You mentioned history though, which big mistake, because I love that. And I was so giddy when I heard that they mentioned the Boxer Rebellion, because I was like, oh, I know that. I wonder what happened. And I don't know how much you know about late Qing Dynasty history.
Too much, some say.
Oh, well, then you probably already know how it resolved in the for real.
Yeah, but I mean,
right?
mention it for the listeners, because they probably...
Folks at home. Yeah. For the folks at home, a multinational alliance of troops, mostly from European countries, sent a bunch of troops to China because foreigners were being attacked by a rebellious group of dudes. And they practiced martial arts. They thought that, like, they were protected from bullets. You know, dumb outsiders were like, they look like boxers because they're punching. And they put down the rebellion, this, that, and the other thing. But in fucking Bioshock Infinite, this floating city goes to China and levels the capital, like burns it down. And I thought that was both a good way of characterizing how the city and Comstock handle things. Like, just no regard to, you know, human life or international relations or anything like that. And also, like, it really captured the American exceptionalism that Columbia is supposed to embody. Like, fuck international law. Let's just destroy a whole city and violate the sovereignty of another nation. And then when the United States doesn't care for it, they just secede. So, I don't know. I really loved how they wove history into this setting.
I feel like there's a bunch of stuff probably like that just completely goes over my head when playing the game. Because, one, I didn't know about that for a start. But, like, two, there are so many little details in this game. And in respect to history, in respect to, like, the multiverse. So, for example, actually, sorry, do you have anything else you want to say about history?
No, I talk about it every day. So, you can, I got my little bit out right there. You can take
so
over
you
now.
were like, oh, it's called Bioshock Infinite, right? Because there's an infinite amount of lighthouses. And...
Right.
In the multiverse, like, there's infinite. But another way to look at it is that, yeah, there is infinite amount of lighthouses, but it's an infinite loop, right? Of Booker waking up, doing this thing, failing and then waking up and doing it again.
Okay.
And that's why when you start in the game, it says, will the circle be unbroken? And that's his infinite loop. And it's that theme that makes it infinite and not like just the infinite amount of lighthouses, which, you know, arguably the same thing, but it's really just Booker stuck in this like never-ending like attempt to save Elizabeth.
Yeah, there's so many weird things that get recontextualized once you've played through once. I didn't get the whole thing where the twins would have their little board where, like, oh, well, I forget what the fuck
heads
they
or
asked
tails.
you. Oh,
Yeah.
heads or tails. Yeah, and then they turn around and there's a bunch of, like, marks on the back side of the board, too. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? And it's like, oh, they've gone through that many different Bookers, and they're tallying what decisions he makes.
And, like, at the start, when they're arguing over, like, who's gonna row the boat, and they're like, can't you get Booker to row? And he's like, he doesn't row. He's like, he doesn't row? He's like, no, he doesn't row. And they're like, oh. And that just means that, like, he's never rowed and he doesn't row. But the way that they phrase it twice, you're like, what does he mean he doesn't row? Like, how do, like, he can't row? But, like, oh, he doesn't. Like, we've done this a million times and he just doesn't do that. And that makes sense. Like, but first it's such a weird thing to hear.
I thought they were just British, so I was like,
oh,
scrumptious.
Some
weird joke.
Yeah. One thing that I fucking love, like, it's completely irrelevant, but it's a really tiny detail, is that the Lutece twins aren't actually twins. They're the same person, but one was in a female universe and one was in a male universe, and they come together. And the only place that I can remember that you really see that is when you walk into this square, or out of the square at the beginning. There's a statue of one of the twins, and it transforms from male to female, because your universe, I guess.
I didn't see
Yeah, it has
that.
like this electric thing run up it, and it goes from the male one to the female one. You wouldn't even notice what you were looking at, because you haven't really properly met them apart from being in the boat yet, so I don't think you'd be like, what's this? What's going on? But the fact that they're like the same person from different universes is so sick. And they're not twins. They're just one person talking to themselves. I love that.
I wanted to ask you, what was the tensest moment for you in this game?
See, I didn't remember any tense moments apart from obviously the crescendo.
Okay, yeah, that is a little gut-wrenching.
Yeah, like that. Sobbing doesn't come close. Like, I don't even remember if I could proproperly see that.
You were sobbing?
Dude, because it's so good.
Oh my god,
it's so good.
But you're like my emotional rock. I've never even heard you rattle
well,
before.
I cried at Bioshock Infinite and I cried at Life is Strange, the original. Okay, it's out there now.
Oh.
No, dude.
I can hide this for you if you want. I can burn my computer, and this will never see the light
It
of day.
wasn't just from sad. It was just from being overwhelmed, from trying to process everything, from how you put the empathy of going, okay, you had an evil version of your dad, then you had your dad that just saved you, and there's a million of you, and you're all here, and in so many universes you've been trying to kill your father and yourself to save other people. Like, that's a lot. And you're right, she does have big eyes. And so, therefore, I felt that.
I think it's very interesting that when you're talking about the game, when you say your father, you're viewing it from Elizabeth's point of view. So, would you say this is Elizabeth's story rather than Booker's?
Yeah, for sure. Like, you barely see him. You see his reflection a couple times, right? Like, who cares? I mean, I do like his name. That's cool.
That was a very, like... you're, like, gushing about Elizabeth and, her emotional journey. Would you say it's her story rather than Booker's? Well, you hardly see Booker, and, like, his reflection once.
You know what? Like, the thing is, Booker has a million movies made about him. Oh, I'm, like,
What?
No, not literally.
Oh, are you talking about Comstock?
No. Like, fucking... Was it Hopper? Hopper in Stranger Things, for example, is Booker DeWitt, okay?
Oh.
Like, we have him a million times over.
The archetype.
Like, dude, they're the same.
Oh, I see what
so
you
I
mean.
don't care about fucking Booker. How many multi-dimensional traveling, strong, beautiful women that have to go through that story do we have? None. And it doesn't matter that she's hot, she could have been ugly, but I do like her more because she is hot. Okay? I'm gonna say it. I was manipulated.
Your adoptive daughter. There you go. That's all I needed to hear.
You got it out of me, damn it.
See, I resisted the manipulation, but I knew it was happening. Like, I won't say like, ew, no, I didn't think she was pretty. Like, she's literally designed to be pretty.
And that's fine. But she's also strong and interesting, and she reads a lot. She's not a manic pixie dream girl, though. You know, she's incredible as well, also, specifically.
Yeah, she's your daughter, and she kills you, so I don't think Manic Pixie Dream Girls are supposed to do that.
She's awesome. It's Elizabeth's story. At Booker, I'll watch House, you know, if I want a miserable man again. But he's literally Hopper, though. Like, Hopper's daughter died of cancer.
Yeah.
He finds a new daughter with special powers, and, like, he starts to, like, grapple with his past and whether or not he can be a good guy again and forgive himself and love. But whatever. Oh, I'm a man, you know?
Totally unrelated. I think I'll watch The Last of Us and get caught up on that with Emma. But anyway. I will say one of and this isn't my most anxious part of the game, but I'll talk about that later. One of the more gut-punchy parts was when you can't leave the room until you hand over Anna, because you pick her up, and, like, again, I was like, fuck, my brain's getting hijacked, because my little lizard brain is like, oh, this is my baby. I'm not going to give up this baby. This is mine. And I just didn't want to, and I literally Googled, like, can I not give up baby in Bioshock Infinite? And, like, no, you can't. And that part, like, broke my heart a little bit, seeing Booker handing over his baby girl.
There's a particular frustration that I have, and I think it happened in Red Dead as well. Yeah, it did happen in Red Dead, where it's like, you say no to something, but then the same series of events still unfold, but just like, oh, you say no? It's like, oh, you're gonna steal that carriage? No. But then, like, the boss comes over and he's like,
your buddy stole it anyway.
And it's like, oh, I hate that in video, which isn't the same as what happened in Bioshock Infinite, because they're just making you do it. So it's almost like they just want you to feel an emotion and complicit, I guess. They want you to feel what Booker felt. It's not really about making the decision. And if it was just a passive cutscene, then it wouldn't give you quite the same emotion. The same as throwing the tomato at the interracial couple. If that was a cutscene, I'd be like, oh, that's awkward. But having to do it, that's different.
See, that was one of those, the scene with Booker handing over his daughter, that was one of those where I was, like, begging for them to do the stupid illusion of choice thing. I was like, please, let the game keep going, but don't make me do this. Like, I did not want to do that at all. And so I was like, please, just have Elizabeth, like, slap the baby out of my hands and hand it over. I don't want to have to physically go over and hand my digital baby over to the digital mean guy.
I think, like, I might have had, like, a similar reaction, because obviously you don't want to do it, you hate the man. Now, it was out of spite. It's like, oh, no, this is mine, I know what happens now. But I despise babies. Like, I just fucking hate children. So, like, that part of it was fine.
I love them. So that, yeah, I've got a soft spot for babies, so that was extra difficult for me, because, yeah, I saw Anna, and I was like, oh, little baby, like, how fun. Alright, now hand her over, so she can be trapped in a tower for years and years.
Yeah, whereas I was like, yeah, take her, I've got Elizabeth. She's cool now. I got her when she's cool. I skipped the terrible twos, you know?
Oh, my tensest part, though, was when you said you forgot this part, when you go to Comstock House, and it's literally like a bunch of delusional people wearing George Washington masks, and there's the overseer guys who have like a spotlight on like the front of, I want to say the front of their mask, and then they have like these huge like siren things, or maybe it's something to help them hear better, but on the sides of their heads. And it's one of the few parts of the game, at least that I noticed, where you can avoid combat. And suddenly I was like, fuck, I don't want to fight these guys. I'm going to try to sneak around. And the building was so, like, decrepit, falling apart. There was just a sense of everything is... all the, like, joy, what little joy that Columbia, like, puts on as a front was just gone. And it was just this desolate place with people that are delusional and out to murder you. And it really made me on edge. Like, the few times that I got caught, I just panicked and would, like, run away and hope that 10 George Washingtons weren't behind me.
I don't remember that part. I remember some of the battles, but I don't remember that. I do remember, like, how, like, eerie the design was of some of the bad things.
I wanted to try to make you cry with my next question. And maybe you didn't give a rat's ass, but this was me being a bit of a softie again. Did you cry when Songbird died?
Good dude. I was thinking about that when you were talking about, like, the most tense moment. Because at first I was terrified of Songbird. And I think, actually, probably the story arc with Songbird is one of the more gentle, nuanced arcs of the game. As opposed to, like, Daisy, who's like, oh, I'm the good guy. No, I'm not. Haha. Just kidding.
Yeah, I shoot kids.
Songbirds arc was, okay, he's terrifying. Oh, actually, he's not a mechanical bird. He's a dude that loves Elizabeth. Or is he a bird? I like it when he's a bird, not a weird dude in a robot suit. And then dying underwater in Rapture. That scares me because of my thalassophobia, right? So that was awkward too. But yeah, I did feel, perhaps apart from like the main like event of the story, I did feel the most for that part because it was also weirdly bittersweet for Elizabeth because she still loved him, really. Like, she owed him a debt. She felt like he protected her, even though it was like a very grey, again, area. It's like, okay, he's protecting you, but he's also keeping you a prisoner. But he loves you, but he won't let you go because he loves you. So it was a bit like Stockholm Syndrome-y, but I think...
And he's programmed or something, so like he can't really, like, he doesn't have a ton of free will either.
So I did feel bad for Elizabeth. Another sacrifice that like she makes. She has to say goodbye to like the only friend that she had after finding out that he wasn't really her friend.
That was one of the questions that Clem can't see that I had on here.
Well, they were going to be goofy, not as impactful as the death of Songbird.
Well, some of them are goofy, some of them are like, maybe I can get her to cry and have it recorded. The other one is, what does it mean when you call someone a Wally?
Oh, they're a silly Billy.
What does it mean to be a silly Billy?
I mean, that's a podcast in itself, I think.
The Silly Billy episode. We'll put that on the Patreon.
Apparently, I think, again, it's people hearing what they want to hear, because there's no way they ever had the foresight to do this over at Irrational Games. You can hear the noises of songbirds when playing Bioshock in Rapture.
No, like the original?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think it's called, like, or, like, there's a specific sound that plays during that scene that also plays in Bioshock. I'm not sure, I was reading a thread about it. But yeah, I thought that was quite cool, but there's no way, because, well, one, it takes place so much later that I don't know what the implications would be, like, that he didn't die in there when he did die, but I don't know. Something to think about. Something cool, though.
I'll have to look into that, because that does sound interesting, but yeah, that would be like an insane... I could believe it if they found an interesting sound in the original Bioshock and then retconned it to be related to Songbird.
Yeah, that would make sense.
But I feel like neither one of us knows enough about it right now to properly flesh it out.
Imagine, like, if I played Bioshock again and I could remember whatever fucking sound it was, like, that would be a cool moment. An extra cool moment in playing Bioshock if you heard, like, oh, Songbird just died, like, whilst I'm fighting splicers, and, like, oh, that's a whole other fucking thing to deal with later on, but right now I've got to deal with Andrew Ryan, you know? Like,
yeah, that's Silly Billy. That Wally, as it were. I wanted to, talk a little bit more about you.
Oh.
Unless you had some fun Bioshock stuff to discuss. I'm down to clown with that, too.
No, I didn't.
I just didn't want to keep you super late either.
I just feel like I'm significantly less interesting than Bioshock Infinite.
Than Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. Like, guys.
I'm not even trapped in a tower, and I cannot open up the rifts. But I know you have been, like... You've been on the internet for, like, a while, like, making stuff. And I was just curious, like, what was your first, like, little project or thing that you did on here?
So...
Here being the internet.
I mean, I might be wrong. I mean, like, obviously I had a MySpace, but in terms of, like, making any form of content, which I don't think MySpace counts for, I guess that's no different than, like, Twitter or something.
Yeah.
There was... I'm going to say 2012, I don't really know. I'm gonna guess around 2012. Oh, maybe. I don't know. But the first, like, thing I remember which really had an impact, and I, like, made a bunch of friends from it, from us all creating content, there was this platform called VU. And I don't know if you know about VU.
Wait, say it again?
VU. Like, the letter V and then the word U.
Oh, like it smells really
yeah,
bad.
VU. It was created by a guy called Steve Spurgett, who lived in New York. And it was a video platform that was, I think the intent was for YouTubers to use it to have a more direct and fast turnover time to interact with their fans. So you submitted, all it was, every video you made could only be made in response to a question. So, and the questions were like anonymous, or you could see who they were from, like whatever. But you would just get a list of questions and you would just make video responses to them, and they were up to a minute long, I think. I might have made that part up, but they were quite quick. And I was just... there was a few YouTubers that were on there. I don't know if, like, they sponsored people to do it. One of my friends I met on it 10 years ago, and, like, we're still friends today. He made YouTube videos until recently, I think. And I think I had, like, 3,000 videos on there by the end. Like, I spent an entire...
Holy
yeah,
shit.
So it was the summer after uni. I was unemployed. I was living in a house in Plymouth with 5 uni students who were a couple of years younger than me, and at the time that felt like a lot, because I think I was like 23 and they were like 19. It was like not a big gap, like when you're like 30 and 32, but like when you're that age, it's a lot. And I'd just gone through like the worst breakup of my life, and he was still living in the same city, and I spent like about probably 6 to 9 months just making videos on this platform all day, every day. Made a bunch of friends, a couple of whom I met in real life. One of them flew me to New York to hang out. Yeah,
Wow.
like it was awesome, and that was my first like online community, but also like making stuff experience. And it doesn't exist anymore. I think it lasted like 2 years, and then Steve sold it, and I don't know what happened to it. But I've got like a shirt, like Steve sent because I got in so early, we knew like the founder a little bit, and he sent us all like merch, like all of the people that were like had the most videos, which was me, this guy called Raphael, who was this kid in Georgia. He went to university in Atlanta, I think. There were like this guy called Kevin, Scotty, like all these guys. It's such a good time, dude. It was so sweet. It was like I'd never met such a diverse group of people before. Like in real life, you don't get to like meet 17 people from like every different state in America and at once, right? And then like somebody from Scotland and like whatever. And yeah, I went to a girl that I met on there called Jo. She's an absolute sweetheart. She would get some sort of inheritance money every year and go to New York. And one year she was like, do you want to come? She flew me out to hang out with her in New York for a week. And whilst we were there, we met this guy called Naeem, who had also one of the top 10 most videos on the VU site. He was like 18. He lived in New York anyway. And we all went to our hotel room and just drank and hung out, and dude, that was awesome. I love that shit. I just love meeting people. That was such a good time. This has become longer than I wanted it to be, but like it.
No, this is super cool. That's a fun little story there. Thank you for sharing that. I suppose like, and maybe it's just that again, but I was curious what your favorite like project or thing that you've worked on the internet has been, or is it just was it your experience at VU?
I wouldn't consider it much like of a project at VU, because it was like literally like someone would be like, oh, what are you doing today? And you just like it almost like TikTok, right? Like, well, I guess you can engage with TikTok however you want.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it sounded like a weird like proto TikTok like Vine with the given the length of the videos, but like you said, more interactive. Yeah. So that's you couldn't
cool. You couldn't like pre-record or edit or make a video and upload it. It had to be like a live webcam response to the question. You could re-record it if you did it wrong, but other than that, it had to be like webcam instant, like one take. That's all it was.
Wow. So what is your favorite then?
Like I think I've done like everything for like a short amount of time. Like I streamed for like 3 months, right? You were there. That was
only 3 months.
I think so,
really?
Roughly. I mean, for a couple months. A year or so before that, and then like for like 3 months again more recently. I was on like BookTube for a while, you know.
BookTube, like
yeah,
YouTube?
But we called it BookTube, like BookTok.
Oh, yeah, well, I was going to say, because I've seen you on TikTok reading your books, allegedly.
Reading your little books.
Again.
Even
yeah,
though you're
I didn't see any proof.
Uh-huh.
Oh my god. Oh, but yeah, I was, because you've done so many little things like that, I didn't know if one stood out. I know you've done a couple podcasts, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I love everything that is, you know, it's like I felt like I had a podcast called Ghost Museum with my friend, and one cool thing that we did with that was every podcast we would talk about a haunted artifact or a ghost story, right, that's supposedly real, and we would take like a memento from that ghost story, like imaginary, and we would put it in our ghost museum, and we were like mapping out the museum and like where all the shit was in our fake museum. Like we'd have like a haunted doll from Annabelle or whatever, and then like a bit of like a knife from a murder in another room. So that was like a cute like thing. I like all those little creative projects. Like you and I, we had a podcast about conspiracies. Like it's super. I just like making things. I don't care if they ever become anything. I just have a nice time making things with friends.
That was why I wanted to pick you for this too, because you're fun to make stuff with.
Thank you. You too, James.
I'm glad you picked me to be on this podcast too. Well, okay, so we talked about book talk. What was that like? Like, is it like its own little world and like with its heroes and its villains, or are you guys really just staring at a camera and talking about books? I want the book talk drama. If
there are heroes and villains for sure. Like, I'm not particularly as involved in book talk as I mean, I'm not particularly involved in book talk at all, but I moved on a little bit. So, there's two. I'd say two core issues that book talk have and face and talk about. Three. Okay. One is...
3? What about 2?
One is, I can't be on book talk because I can't afford to buy books all the time, and book talk favors people that do book hauls every week. It's less about reading and it's more about consumption. It's consumer talk, right? As is everything else. But, you know, I think a lot of people, myself included, like books as objects. I also read, but honestly, fucking a book, I love it. It's one of my favorite objects in the world. Doing what to a book? Well, sorry.
Jesus Christ, I don't think I have it in me to be on book
18
talk.
plus the podcast. So, like, that's one of the debates. There was a big discussion over people thinking they couldn't be on book talk because some people were claiming to read like 30 books a month or 300 books a year, and that didn't seem viable, and people were almost bragging about how quickly they read. And obviously that sort of split out into other discussions about the type of books they were reading and whether or not they counted, which split out into another discussion about audiobooks, and everyone's like, I can read Colleen Hoover, and by reading I mean listening, but it is reading. So there's like elitists on there, there's a lot of condescension, and there's also a lot of like bragging because you read fast, which is pathetic. Like, can we all just enjoy a book? And then there's like book talk favorite books, which everyone reads the same book, and then people get pissed off because there's no like original thought. People think they have to talk about the same books to be popular. But then there's the real juicy villains.
Oh, that wasn't even the juice?
That wasn't. That was...
Where's the juice?
That was a fucking spread. This is the juice. There was one, and I think now 2, authors who have TikTok accounts. One of them was quite big. One of them was called Piper CJ. I don't remember the name of the other one.
Damn, we're naming names.
Yeah, we're fucking naming names. Fuck you, Piper CJ. Who... like, give out books, whatever, write books, people buy their books, and they review their books. And 2 authors, Piper CJ and this other person, have gone after people who left negative reviews. Like,
oh, you didn't like my book enough? Time to ruin you?
Yeah, that, but also just saying, like, oh, you didn't understand. Like, and then Piper CJ's publisher, I think, got in on it too. Or their editor or somebody, and they were just like, no, you're wrong. Like, why would you? I can't believe you like negatively just being a dick to someone that negatively reviewed the book and having a problem with it and not understanding that is what's going to happen if you're an author. Like, people are trying to support you because you have a book talk and they want to like lift you up, but then you're pushing people down that, like, left a negative review, and not that, like, critique, like an actual, like, I felt this way, not just like, your book shit, fuck you. Like, that would be understandable.
Yeah.
And somebody else was, the other person who I don't know the name of, was like, oh, you didn't understand it then. Oh, my book's selling its tits off, actually. I've barely got time to reply to you because I'm on doing so many book tours. Like, it was really, like, infantile shit.
And I'm surrounded by women that are fucking my book right now, so...
She pretty much... And she ended it with, like, kisses, right?
Oh,
like, the word kisses. That. Yeah, it was just so passive-aggressive, like, bullshit. Yeah, kisses.
I thought you meant like the little emote or something, which I personally despise.
So I've barely got time to reply to you right now because my book's selling its tits off, and I've just been on like 2 book tours. But like obviously just didn't understand it. Sorry that my heroine was thin. Sorry that you might not feel that you're thin, so you don't like her. But anyway, I've got to go. Kisses. Like it was that almost exactly that. But this person's publisher was like, I'm so sorry about this. We don't condone this. Like, yikes. Yeah, so that's the juice. One just detestable prick, just genuinely going after someone who left a reasonable review of their book that was saying, like, I think that the protagonist is too perfect. I find it quite shallow. Blah, blah, blah. And then the author also got her friends to, like, write positive reviews of her book that were obviously just addressing the opposite thing of all the
I like how flawed the main character is.
Yeah, like, oh, she's just like every woman I've ever met, all wrapped into one. She's so complex. And the other guy, whereas, like, the actual review was like, it's quite, like, a one-dimensional, thin, perfect woman, and I can't really relate to it. Yeah, it was so awful. And yeah, so there's a big conversation now about how authors don't belong in review spaces.
Interesting.
Which is probably true, best for their mental that they don't, but yeah. That's the TikTok juice.
So I'm like the negative reviewer reviewing Elizabeth, and you're like the author conspiring to repress my views on...
I'm allowed to repress.
Her large eyes. Oh, okay.
Because I'm not the author, right? So I don't have any, like, ownership over it. Dude, I wish. Was it written by, like, Ken Levine? Is that the guy that wrote Bioshock Infinite?
That sounds like a name I've heard before, yeah.
Yeah, okay, we'll go with Ken.
Yeah,
Good
Avril
job,
Lavigne
Ken.
or whatever, yeah. Oh, goodness. I think that about does her. Is there anything you'd like to plug? Anywhere we can seek you out online? Or would you like to remain hidden in this internet of ours?
I'm an enigma, James.
All right.
I mean, you can plug Clashspiracy, but that might not be out for a while.
Yeah, you guys, mark your calendars. 2025, our conspiracy-themed podcast will revive, and you guys can peep that out. It has a Twitter, I think, and this podcast also has a Twitter, so please go check that out if you want to yell at me and tell me that I'm bad at Bioshock or any of the other games I've talked about so far. I have one last question for you, Clem.
Yeah.
Can you say NPC you later?
NPC you later.